Why am I out of breath? Last video of 2021. Let's do this. What's up, guys? My name is Evan Naka, and we are back yet again in the home office. Yes, it has changed again. The setup has been different every single video, I think. This time it wasn't my fault, though. I actually came home, and without knowing, my wife decided that my desk should no longer be facing that wall, and it needs to be facing this wall, and I love it. It's great. Anyways, that's besides the point. That doesn't even matter. What matters is that this is the last video of 2021, and I thought it should be a special video. Now, I was going to do kind of a look back in 2021 because that seems like the go-to, but I think that can wait. I'll probably do that in 2022 just because I'm wrapping up some last-minute projects here in 21 and figured, you know what, let me wrap that up so I can include it in the next video. Now, this video, this is exciting. Now, let me preface before we get into what I'm about to show you and talk about for the rest of this video is this in no way has changed my mind about shooting on Sony cameras. I love Sony cameras. I have always been a Sony shooter. Besides, when I first started out as a photographer, I started with a Nikon, but that was because I basically had no choice and I didn't know a thing about photography. And I was like, it has a lens and it has a camera body and takes photos, and that's good enough for me, and that's all that photography is. But that's a story for another time. I am not by any means getting rid of any of my Sony equipment. I didn't sell anything to get this camera. I didn't change up my entire workflow. I didn't get rid of lenses. I didn't buy a ton of new lenses. This is more of just an evolution of where I want to see my photography go and see if it actually helps. At the end of the day, this could not be a good decision for me. Maybe it doesn't make sense from our workflow. Maybe it just isn't for me, but you got to try it. And that's what I'm always trying to tell people is just try it. If you sit there and get so far in your head and you're like, you know, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if my idea is good. I don't know if I'm creative enough. You know, am I going to get that job? Am I not going to get it? Does she like me? You know, whatever it might be. If you don't try, you're never going to know, and you're going to sit there and think about it. And that's what this is. Now, this company that I'm about to show you, this new camera, and you probably already know what it is based on the title that I have down below, but I'm trying to add some type of drama to what I'm about to unveil. But pretend like you don't know. The camera that I'm about to show you, they did not pay me for this. They didn't send it to me. B&H didn't send it to me. Nobody said, Evan, can you do a video on this camera? This is purely on me. I wanted to do this. This is money out of my pocket. I purchased it full price. There was no sale going on. So this is purely just on me, what I think of it, and if it really is worth it. I think the anticipation is there. I'm sure you're wondering, oh man, what is it? You already know. But pretend like you don't. And let me show you what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Hasselblad. Just the box itself is so nice. I mean, I'm a sucker for packaging, and the fact that it's just matte black with a glossy black logo, I just want to take a second to really appreciate this. I can't say enough about packaging. Packaging sells me beyond anything else. Like, Apple does it so well. I think they're probably the ones that really were the first ones to like, no, we're going to spend so much money on a packaging. Nobody's going to care that they're spending way more than they should for a little charger dongle thing, but it's because it's going to look so sleek that they're not going to want to get rid of the box. You win. But I digress. Today, we're talking about the Hasselblad X1D Mark II. Just reminding you, I'm so excited about this camera that I've only had it for less than a day. I was on the phone with one of my buddies yesterday, and as we were talking, I got a knock on the door, and it was a package from FedEx, and I was like, wait, there's only one thing I'm really expecting from FedEx that needs a signature, but it's supposed to be coming tomorrow. But it was today. And of course, it was that. So I dropped everything I was doing. I was like, yo, man, I gotta go. I gotta see what this is. I gotta open it now. I basically put my entire day and today on pause so that I could just look at this camera. Immediately after I unboxed it, this is the second time basically me holding this. As soon as I took it out of the box, I realized that there was a little bit of battery left in the camera for, you know, maybe they charge it a little bit before you get it. I don't know, but there was some battery left over, and I ran outside in my studio and I started shooting with it. I didn't have an idea in mind. I didn't think about what I was going to shoot. I just did it because I was like, I'm too excited. I want to see how this camera performs. Now, if you follow me for a while now, I've said it a few times that I am by no means a technical shooter in terms of all the specs and things that go into cameras and what makes them great. I really am just interested in what I need as a photographer or videographer if I'm talking about video camera. What you're going to get from this channel is a real hands-on review from a photographer that was self-taught, that wants to run outside, wants to see if this works in his workflow, and if I can do better pictures with this camera versus another camera, or what fits for a certain project. And that's what I need, because that's what makes sense on a day-to-day basis for me. So hopefully this will be helpful in terms of just deciding, should I even play with the idea of getting a camera like this? Back to the build quality of this. This is a full metal body and it is so sleek. Somehow they've managed to design this camera to almost feel modern but vintage at the exact same time. I just can't get enough of the build quality. So trust me when I say I'm not going to dive too far into it about how heavy it is, if it's lighter than this or that. Look, it's a substantial camera. It feels like a camera. It got solid build quality. I feel like if I threw it, it's not going to break. Don't do that. I'm not recommending anybody throw their camera, but that's how it feels. It feels like a solid camera. And from what I've heard, this is weatherproof. It is actually very weatherproof. So it is supposed to be built extremely durable and it's not that fragile. So let's just go over some basics because I think there are some things to notice on the build. First and foremost, it's a trigger button. I know it's such a small feature, but it's orange and it's cool looking. Second thing is this guy right here. Once you push it up, you can move it around and then you can lock it back in place. The power button is much more like a technical device or something. It's not a switch. You don't turn it on and off. You push it and it powers up. Very much like a computer screen or something like that. Takes a second for sure. The battery is right there. It actually is exposed. There's not a door covering it or anything like that. But the way you get the battery out, you push this little lever, pops out, push it down a little bit, and boom, out pops the battery. Now, this is probably one of the biggest benefits that I'm seeing just right off the bat without knowing too much about the camera is this screen is so intuitive. Like I've never realized how simple a camera could be. Sony menus, and remember I'm a Sony user, are notoriously complicated. And there's a ton of different features and ways to navigate and go to different things. And Hasselblad just makes it very simple. Everything is touchscreen. I can just scroll around, change ISOs, focus, how I'm gonna be shooting. It's all touchscreen and it's very easy to use and it is quick reacting. You touch it, it reacts. It's like using an iPad on the back of your camera. Then if you really want to, you can go through here. You can do different focus settings. You have your spirit level, which I actually think is awesome. It's just a little digital screen to tell you if you are level. And I think that's great for all my overhead photography because a lot of the times I don't know if I'm level. I've even taken levels out, like the mechanical tool, and held it on there to see if I'm level. This one does it right in camera. And that's really helpful for me. And the fact that it's just easy to find, even better. Now let's talk a little bit about the features of this camera, and I'll compare it to my Sony because that's what I use. But this camera is a medium format camera. Yes, it's medium format. Is it worth it? We'll see. But it is medium format. What does that mean? That means that sensor in here is way bigger than the sensor of your full frame camera. You're going to pack a lot more information into that picture and it's just going to look a little bit better. Let's talk a little technical stuff because I do think that these are important to know. This camera does shoot in 50 megapixels. Now compared to my Sony, that's 11 less megapixels in that image. Will I notice a difference? Look, I've taken a photo shoot once. I haven't noticed a difference. I've actually never really noticed a big difference when it comes to that high megapixel count versus when I went from the Sony a7R III, which I believe was 42 megapixels. You're getting a ton of information. Now, out of the medium format camera family, this is actually not that high. There are cameras that shoot over 100 megapixels. On top of that, this shoots 16-bit color depth. Now, color depth is probably the biggest advantage that the Hasselblad system in general has. Everybody wants that Hasselblad color look. Now, you've heard the debate going on since the beginning of time. Sony versus Canon, Canon versus Nikon, and Canon usually comes out on top. Now, recently, I've heard a lot of people saying, well, actually, Sony's doing a really good job, but I don't think any of them can touch Hasselblad at this moment in time. Maybe it's that medium format sensor, I don't know. But Hasselblad has probably some of the best colors in the game. It is smooth, they are rich, they are deep, they are everything you want out of your camera. And it's also worth mentioning that this has 14 stops of dynamic range. Now let's talk a little bit about the negatives, because I can't be so gung-ho about this and say that I'm still a Sony shooter. And I'll tell you why I'm still a Sony shooter. This camera is definitely not meant for everything and everyone. It is meant for a purpose. It is not a camera that you run outside and take some photos and you're just like, yep, that was easy, I'm done. You actually need to be a little bit more methodical, think about it a little bit more, and know what you're going to be using this camera for. Now, if you're a photographer just getting started, or even well established, and you're running and gunning and you're not sure what you're going to be expecting that day, or your style of shooting is really fast and moving and you need to rely on autofocus, stop right here. This camera is not for you. I'm telling you, I've used it for a day and I can already tell you, no, this isn't for you. But if you're doing a little bit more studio stuff, you're more thought out, you can take your time a little bit, product photography, portrait photography that's staged, stick around. This camera might be more interesting than you think. This camera has awful autofocus. And when I say awful, take it with a grain of salt. Does it autofocus? Yes. Does it take a lot of time? Yes. Now, compared to most modern day cameras on the market, it doesn't even compare. It doesn't even compare to some of the lower end models of cameras that are half its price, a quarter of its price, maybe even like a fifth of its price. It doesn't have eye autofocus, it doesn't have tracking, it doesn't have any of that, and it's loud. It has to breathe. So don't rely on the autofocus. If you have time, use it, it's fine, but you're gonna be probably relying more on the manual side of it. On top of that, this is a slow camera. And when I say slow, it's slow. Now, if you're used to taking photos at a fast pace, kind of like I am, it really slows you down, which might be a good thing. Maybe you need to be more thought out when you're taking a photo and not just run around and just snap, 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 snap and hope you get something. It's going to take some time to get used to. This shoots 2.7 frames per second. Just to put it in kind of comparison, not that these are meant for the same thing, but I just think it's kind of worth noting and showing the difference. The A1 shoots 30 frames per second. So in 1 second, you're getting 30 photos. This one, you're going to get 2.7. I don't know what the 0.7 is. Also, the shutter speed only goes up to 2000. The other thing was I did a really quick and non-scientific low light test with this camera, and it failed miserably. Like I told you before, when I got this camera, I went outside, I started shooting, I shot in my studio, I had lights and everything that was great. When I was finished, we went to go get dinner, and I was like, oh, it's kind of sun's going down. Let me see how this performs. And I took it in the car with us, and I was just kind of shooting photos as we were driving and parked and things. And anything over 800 ISO started to get really grainy, and it just wasn't usable. When I went to 1600 ISO, trash, garbage. Now, I haven't mentioned price for a reason yet, because I wanted to give you all of that information before you write it off in terms of just the price for itself, because this camera is really nice, but it does come with a price tag. Now, just coming in about $5,500, that's about $2,000, $2,500 more than my Sony a7R IV. Is it worth it? Still yet to be seen. Is it that much more? No, but it kind of is the price of two cameras in one, and you're gonna use this only for photo, not video. Now, if you're planning to get one camera that does both video and photo, no, this ain't for you. Hasselblad isn't the system for you. So it is a pretty price tag for just a photo camera. Now, to compare it to like my Sony FX6, that's about the same price. I believe my FX6 was about $6,000, and it only shoots video. So the more you get into this industry and the better your skill set becomes, you're gonna notice that you're gonna want tools for one thing versus another, and where certain cameras that do both good kind of fall short. Whereas my Sony a7R IV takes good photos, okay video, terrific photos, awful video. And so it's just kind of like you're buying things that are going to be more geared towards one and not both. And you're going to run into that inevitably. Let's talk about a lens for this camera, because you can't have a camera body without a lens. Also comes in a pretty sweet box. You get me with the boxes every single time. I don't know. I don't want to throw these away. So the lens I decided to go with is the 35 to 75 Hasselblad. This camera does use a completely different system because of that medium format sensor. So it uses its unique lenses for it. There's not much to be said about this lens besides it is sleek, it is good looking. You know, it's not like, it doesn't have a bunch of things going on it. It is very, very simple. But again, solid build, it's metal, everything rotates very smoothly like your normal high-end lens would, but it doesn't have any of the extras on it. I decided to go with this one because I think the only zoom lens that Hasselblad offers right now, and for the variety type of shooting that I do, I didn't want to be kind of stuck with one lens just to start out with. But again, just like everything in the Hasselblad system, it comes with a price tag. This lens by itself is about $5,000. Another thing worth noting with lenses on the medium format sensor, your focal length is going to be a little bit different than you're used to. Now I slapped this on and I was like, it says I'm shooting at 35, but it feels wider than that. And that has to do with that wide sensor. So your 35 millimeter is actually closer to about a 28 millimeter. And this also goes up to 75 millimeters, and that's closer to a 58 millimeter. So it's something you're gonna have to get used to. Have I run into an issue with that? Not yet, but I've only shot with once. So let's talk about this photo shoot I just did. A spur of the moment, spontaneous. I had no idea what I was gonna be shooting. I didn't have an idea in my head. I just started setting up equipment. It was like, hopefully something comes together because I just want to shoot a freaking photo with this new super expensive camera. Now, I had just gotten an Oculus from a buddy of mine, Matt House, big shout out, love my Christmas gift, thank you buddy. I set up some different colored lights. I had a little gradient going on. I thought that might be cool just to kind of capture, you know, how it handles colors in the background. I shined some other lights on the actual Oculus itself. I used a Nova to create some colored lights in the background, and then I took a 600X and I shined the light directly on that Oculus goggle, I guess, right onto it. I used a cone just to make sure that there was no spill going anywhere else and just on that Oculus itself. And I thought that was good enough just to at least get an idea of how this camera performed with these types of lighting setups. I was immediately in love with the photo that I got. Now, the lighting setup was not complicated at all. You know, I was lucky enough to have access to some of these colored lights and then being able to have a strong enough light to hit in the front, but I could just tell immediately. I can't tell you exactly why, but there was something about the colors, the way that the colors rolled off, the shadows, the highlights, how it was so smooth. And I was really, really impressed. When I clicked that trigger, it was a little bit of a delay because it was like a click, clunk, and then it took a photo. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, there's something different here than what I would have gotten if I shot it on my Sony. Again, the colors, they just rolled off of the device. And this was my final photo. It handles the colors just beautifully. It's just in focus. It looks so good. For a quick photo shoot, I'm really, really happy with how this looks, just to get an idea of what it's capable of if I had a little bit more time setting it up. So all in all, I love this camera so far. Am I sold on it? No, because it is a lot of money. All in all, this is about $11,000 to get started in this system. And is it worth the money yet? I can't tell you yes or no, but I'm seeing a little bit of the benefits from one photo that I've taken. So we'll see. I'm going to use it a little bit more over the course of the next couple of weeks. I even have a photo shoot coming up on January 6th that I think I might use it there, but I'm not sure. I'm a little hesitant because it is more run and gun versus having a lot of time to stage it. But maybe I'll break it out and try and take a couple of photos with it just to see how it performs in a scenario like that. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I just was so excited to jump on here and just show you a little bit about this new camera that I just got. But we'll see where it takes me. We'll see what happens in the future. But for now, I want you all to have a happy new year, happy holidays. I hope you had a great 2021. Let's have an even better 2022. I can't wait to see what the new year brings us. I'm Evan Naka, and I'll see you guys next time.